Hello everyone and welcome back to Newport Station Construction in Kerbal Space Program 1.12 with Realism Overhaul and Sol System, where I am constructing a low Earth orbit station in as grand a way as I can manage. I initially sent up a whole bunch of ISS modules, and I also have the little marshmallow hab there, or at least that's what I call it. But this time I'm going to send up the USI modules, or at least two of them, and also the solar trusses. So that is the goal. And the USI modules aren't too heavy. I'm only sending them in this sort of unit at a time. So we can do it with the H-3 rocket from Japan with its 4 boosters. So here I'm launching from Tampico, my standard space center at Tampico. And up it goes. Now this is not my mod, and it's a very old mod, and you'll see that there are downsides to using it, and I still haven't made my own H3 yet. But we'll also be using my Kasei rocket later on, and that's at least a little bit more reliable. For reasons I didn't quite understand for this launch in particular, the boosters suddenly got very quiet. But if I turned the camera to behind them, they got loud. And then they got louder eventually, so it was weird, but that's probably not the rocket's fault. Something else was happening. And they go out. What is sort of the mod's fault is how they separate. There's something reversed about it, I think. I think the decouplers have their attachment node on the wrong side, the surface attached node. Something like that. I vaguely remember that being a thing and having to correct for that, so probably I'll have to do that again, but it'd be better if I just made my own, probably. That certainly might help this upper stage, which is one integrated thing, by the way. The engine is part of the tank, and I can't figure out how to get a plume on here, so yeah. And the sound goes with the plumes, by the way. And also it looks weird, the shading on it is strange. At some point Raider Nick gave me a foil texture for that sort of fixed the look of it, but I don't know what happened to that version. Anyway, here we will have to use the engines on this in order to complete orbit. These are just BE7 engines, so little Origins, little Hydrolox engines. Ultimately, I'll want to get rid of all the extra stuff that I put on here in order to make it an independent module so that it could propel itself to the station, since we want to reduce the part count whenever possible in order to make as complicated a station as possible. So the RCS ports will eventually go, the engines will eventually go, the tanks, but for now we'll keep them on. I decided that it'd be a good idea to boost the station up. It's in a very low orbit. You can see 226 by 171. That's really low and hard to rendezvous with. So I used those engines in particular to boost it. You might think that I would use the engine on the Lynx spacecraft, but I want the Lynx fuel to be able to deorbit the Lynx later on, and also it turned out that that wouldn't provide much delta V. Whereas the Marshmallow Hab had way more hypergolic fuel than it really needed, and so it was a good idea to just use that instead. That's where the MMH and Mon 3 are, in the metallic section at the bottom of the Marshmallow Hab. Alright, doing the rendezvous. This is still not as high as the station could be. It's still firmly below 400 kilometers in altitude. The rendezvous burns are sort of pretty, so I decided to keep them, including this one coming up as we get ever closer to the station. And here we are coming in for docking. And it was my goal with this module to allow for a few more modules to dock, and so I don't think this is the right orientation when you think about it. The docking port that I've got on the tunnel would make it hard for another module to dock on it if we've got that Marshmallow Hab in the way. So I'll have to reconsider that. But for now, that's how it is. And we launch a second one of those, so this is just the same thing over again. Just an H3 with 4 boosters once again, this time attaching to the opposite side. So you would think that it would be a piece of cake. But of course there's the dodgy booster separation. And this time it gets us. Just the tips, the noses of those boosters decide to evaporate the main tank of the first stage. So I put Sepatrons, of course, and we are off once again. It still won't make the booster separation pretty, but at least they'll leave. There it goes. Pretty steep. I haven't really figured out exactly how to optimize this rocket yet. And yeah, that's still not what you want to see. Ooh, that's definitely not what you want to see, but we're okay for now. But I really just need a different H3. Alright, that's the first stage, and then the silent second stage. No real problems there. And I think we get all the way, yeah, we get all the way to orbit with that second stage. We don't have to use the payload to reach orbit this time. There are plenty of rendezvous burns to do though, and as it turns out we ended up with 2 high in apoapsis, so the first burn is a retro burn. I feel like this is a fairly pretty module overall as we approach the station here. We'll see about functionality. And there, a cinematic of it coasting towards the station with the moon in the background. And lining up for docking. I just found a lot of these scenes pretty, so I included them. Here we go, approaching for dock. And final connection. Alright, so that's those two. And so that's what the station looks like right now. But now I wanted to add solar panels, big solar panels. We got little solar panels, but we want the main solar arrays. And I just decided to mostly arrange them sort of like ISS, except I needed them to be independent. I didn't have a good tug to use at this point to get them into position. So this time I've got all 4 trusses on the same KSP rocket. No boosters necessary. So the KSP rocket has, in theory, a 95-ton payload to low Earth orbit like this. It didn't need all that. The trusses aren't that heavy. The H3 rocket can only manage about 20 tons to low Earth orbit, by the way. Since I recorded this, I've made further improvements to my Tampico scenery, so it looks a little bit better now. So these station construction endeavors are not recent. We'll catch up to the more recent ones. These were all done during Twitch live streams. That's why we have the music. Or, I mean, if we could hear the music over the engine roar. Okay, off goes the first stage. We have the second stage. And next up, fairing separation. Which, for whatever reason, I needed the UI up for. Maybe the script wasn't going to do that automatically. But there we have the 4 trusses on an orange. It's been a while since I used the orange, but I decided to use it as a bus in this case. And that's it for the second stage, and the orange will have to complete orbit. Which it can, no problems. It sure seems like we were a bit short of 95 tons there to low Earth orbit, so I wonder why that is. But anyway, we continue making rendezvous burns. We have to correct inclination a little bit more than I would have liked. So that's this burn. And then there's the station. Well, a little bit far away at 4.5 kilometers, but we are getting closer. And unfortunately, the rendezvous occurred at night, so as we separate the first of the trusses, we will still be in the dark. Off it goes. Awkwardly, but off it goes. Not ideal that they all have their own controller and everything. But the orange sure can't try and dock them to the station. That would be dangerous. Alright, first one connected. And also there wasn't enough room to keep the radiator out. The radiator I retracted there would potentially bump into the solar panels, which would not be good. I mean, visually, of course, it's the same craft, so they don't bump into each other, but still, it wouldn't be visually appealing for it to do that. So I retracted it, but that's obviously a mistake on my part. It shouldn't have been like that. We should have had enough room. And there was a stream issue at this point, so I've lost the audio, basically the music, and we are without that for the conclusion of this video. But we just need to put on the two other solar trusses. I put the second solar truss on while we were still on the dark side of the planet, so visual-wise there wasn't much of a point including that, so I skipped that. So we have this heading on out and going into dock. Obviously, all of these trusses have a lot of things that we're going to end up needing to dispose of for the station. For now, they're just boosting the station cart count. Okay, third truss on. And then final one, as the orange will dispose of itself. Sorry about the lack of sound there. But last one, heading over to the opposite side of the station, lining up. The truss is a legitimate size when it has all of its fuel. It's 14.5 tons, so it's just about the same size as one of the ISS trusses, but that's partly because I packed it with fuel, so without that, it'd still be a decent amount, I think, but not quite as much as the ISS trusses, which is fair, you know. These days we should be able to do the same job for a little bit less. And there it is. So that's the state of Newport Station right now. And with that, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do press like. If you have any comments or suggestions, please leave them in the comment section below. And I'll see you next time.